Welcome to the video, Understanding Research Lab Meetings from the STEM Leaders Program. We're going to go through the purpose of research lab meetings, the various formats that they may have, technical language use in lab meetings, and some tips for your success. What are lab meetings? It's a place where student researchers, graduate students, and professors regularly meet to exchange information, give updates on progress within the lab, give help to guide projects and plan, and to understand experiments, background, and the scientific terminology used. The format of lab meetings can vary greatly depending on the research group. They may be structured or informal and casual. They may be instructive, almost like a classroom, or provide planning and updates and a space for students to share information. The following example illustrates a lab meeting that is structured, almost like a formal classroom, where Professor Skip gives the students background information about the project.
Talk a little bit about, give you some background so that we're all, because we have a bunch of newcomers, right? And Sophie knows a little bit more about polymer stuff, but she hasn't done any dynamic oscillatory testing, right?
Lab meetings can also be held in a small group focusing on a specific project.
I got an email, and did you just want to go through those topics first?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want me to start with the questions? The first one was
Any questions? Yeah. From last week?
I think most of my questions are for Kat, so.
It's your boyfriend's wedding, huh?
But she had to go to her boyfriend's wedding, and because it was such a sad day for her, that was marrying somebody else. And I actually felt bad for her.
Lab meetings can be instructive, giving background information or details about the project.
Polymers, then I can say it a number of different ways. If you look it up in the literature, then they have these things called macromolecules, okay?
Or they may focus on project updates and planning.
Let's figure out a plan. And that integrates these guys.
Researchers often use technical scientific terms that can seem like a code language. Learning the code language for your lab will take some practice. If you don't understand a term or a concept, be sure to ask your professor or a knowledgeable person in the lab. In the next clip, watch as Professor Skip explains a technical term commonly used within the lab.
See, polymers, speaking about polymers is like learning a new language, right? If you want to learn Italian, you gotta, start with learning the basics of Italian and grammar and all that stuff. With polymers and with any other new field, it's the same thing, right? So you guys, I could talk to you for 50 minutes and you wouldn't understand a word I'm saying, and it would all be polymer lingo, right?
Although intimidating at first, learning scientific terminology in the lab lingo is important for communicating with your professor. Listen how this student describes an issue she is having with her research project using a combination of casual English and scientific terminology.
On Tuesday, we made a batch of gel and then put it on to the rheometer while it was hot.
Yeah.
And we're just having problems because it starts to gel around the edges and make it so the plate's kind of stuck before it actually fully gels.
Perhaps even more important than understanding the terminology used in your lab, it is vital that you understand the underlying concepts of your project.
If you stand in front of an instrument and you just run it and you have no idea what to expect or what changing stuff, I can tell you, we can get monkeys, right? Just put them in front of experiments and say, okay, monkey, here's a banana, pick a strain, run a frequency sweep. And then the monkey will do that, okay? But the monkey doesn't understand what they're doing. So I don't want you to be a monkey. I want you to be a person that understands what they're doing when they do these experiments. And you really need to be able to do that if you're doing research. Monkeys are really good at repetitive tasks, right? They don't have to analyze anything. But you guys, we're doing new things. And so you need to be thinking, well, what does this result mean? And if I change this and I see the result, what does that mean? Okay? So in our case, you're going to be changing formulations, or you'll be looking at different materials, or you'll be doing different tests. All of those will give us different information. And as you go along doing those, you ought to be saying, okay, what am I actually doing here? You know, it's like, don't come in and just run an experiment. Say, well, why am I doing this thing? And if you don't understand, then you can ask Kat or I or anybody else who's been around a little bit more. Aileen's got like 2 or 3 weeks experience level on you, so she can do stuff, right?
Here's some tips for navigating your lab meetings. Come to the meeting with a summary. What have you accomplished? What will you do next? Make sure to communicate. Lab meetings are a great place to practice explaining your project and using terminology. Practice learning on your own as well. Try finding some answers to your questions by reading scientific literature first. If you still need help, ask your professor or another knowledgeable person in your lab.
How about you? Did you do anything last week since we last met?
Yeah, we have been doing temperature ramps on the gel. We started by like melting them down and doing the temperature ramp.
Yeah. $12 millimeters?
Yeah.
You run 12 millimeter disc?
The gel disc that we've been making are 12 millimeters.
Why do you run them so high, so big?
Because it's either 4 millimeters.
Right,
or
why don't you run 4 millimeters?
I guess I hadn't thought about. I have 4 millimeter disc. I just.
Because
always
we did
make
some
12.
work on the thicker discs, and they don't reproduce as well.
Communicating with other researchers in the lab can also be important for the success of your project.
So the key here is you guys have to communicate, because we're just like the little mouse, a little hamster in the wheel, right? We're just going round and round and round. We're not going anywhere.
Let's review. Lab meetings allow you to learn and share information regarding the background and the lingo used in your lab. Get together to solve problems. Plan your project out and give updates. And to get to know your colleagues. Most importantly, don't forget to have fun in your lab. Thank you. Before we go, everyone at the STEM Leaders Program wants to give a big thank you to Dr. Skip Rochfort. Without his help, none of this video would have been possible. Thanks again, Dr. Skip. As for me, I'm Andy Haverkamp, and it's been a pleasure helping the STEM Leaders Program produce this video. Thank you.